Imagine a world where students are judged by letters or numbers. Imagine if schools focus on less grades and more on growth. What if our education system valued genuine understanding over the pressure to perform on a single test? Hello everyone, my name is Nick Bashan. I'm a senior here at Wabash College, and like many of you, I felt the intense pressure of grading. The countless hours of studying, not necessarily to understand, but to achieve that A grade. I've researched how our education system impacts our mental health and how it defines our educational experience, and I'm convinced that we need a better approach. Today, I'll argue that our traditional grading system is outdated and harmful. I believe we should replace it with a more meaningful and equitable form of assessment. I'll start by exploring the problems with grading and look at why these issues exist, discuss a solution, and finally explain how we can make a change to this reality of our grading system. The main problem with our current grading system is that it reduces our learning to a single letter or number, creating a competitive environment that fosters stress, limits growth, and discourages a love for learning. Instead of seeing education as an opportunity to grow, many students see it as if a game they're trying to win by any means necessary to get that outcome of an A grade. Research by the American Psychological Association shows that academic stress is the leading source of anxiety among teenagers, with grades being one of the primary contributors. Another study by Pew Research shows that 61% of teens feel a lot of pressure to get good grades, with this being the highest amount of stress coming from teenagers. Grades create a kind of survival of the fittest mentality. We end up competing with our classmates instead of collaborating with them. And we judge our self-worth based on numbers on a page. For some students, this pressure leads to anxiety, burnout, a loss of motivation, rather than focusing on the joy of learning. We become more worried about failure and what a poor grade says about us. Here is a visual by the Education of Washington University. This shows that the top stressor for most teens tends to be academic stress. This is something we need to address in the future, as the dropout rate tends to climb and we are seeing less critical thinking in school, with less people being interested in school. This issue goes beyond an individual student. It also affects those in under-resourced group. In many cases, students in underfunded schools don't have the same resources as those with more privileges do. A report from Brookings Institution highlights that this achievement gap often reflects differences in resources rather than differences in ability. Teachers too feel the strain. Many educators are forced to apply a one-size-fits-all method, despite knowing that students learn in diverse ways. And research shows that the grading systems can lead to bias. A study published in Educational Research found that teachers sometimes unconsciously favor certain students, which can impact grades and contribute to inequities, according to Quinn et al. And finally, many of us, myself included, have felt how grades have affected our self-worth, our motivation, and our genuine desire to learn. When education is reduced to score and rankings, learning for the sake of learning becomes secondary. So what is the cause of this problem? Why do we rely on grades and numbers rather than on focus on what we are trying to achieve, such as learning? The traditional grading system dates back to the 20th century, when schools prioritized efficiency and ranking over individualized learning. Researchers like Alfie Kohn argue that grading was originally designed to streamline education, but to not promote deep learning. This goal was standardization, creating a system where students could be compared at a glance. But as our understanding of education and human development has evolved, this efficiency-focused model no longer serves our needs. Studies show that grading seems to be more of an extrinsic motivator towards trying to get praise rather than intrinsic motivation where we want to do it ourselves. A 2017 study in the Journal of Educational Psychology found that students who are motivated primarily by grades tend to less connect deeply with the material. This efficiency-focused model no longer serves our needs. Instead of encouraging students to take risks and dive deep into their learning, grading encourages them to play it safe and avoid failure. This approach contradicts what we know about fostering creativity and problem solving. To foster real learning, we need to rethink the entire system. We should replace the traditional grading system with more of an assessment-based method that reflects students' understanding, growth, and skills. Competency-based assessment focuses on whether a student has truly mastered a concept. For example, in science class, rather than grading a test, a teacher might assess each student's understanding of the scientific method. Or in history class, students could work on a portfolio that includes research papers and presentations which are reviewed by teachers and peers rather than assigning a specific grade. Some schools have actually already started to use this method of competency-based learning. For example, UC Santa Cruz became known for its narrative evaluations instead of grades. UC Santa Cruz has shown that students have improved overall in their growth and strength in academic process. Similarly, Finland's educational system, often praised for its success, uses less grade-focused approaches, emphasizing feedback and holistic assessments over competition. Now, some people might argue that grades are necessary to hold students accountable and measure success. But accountability can still be maintained through regular feedback and performance assessments. For instance, teachers could work with students to set personal goals and evaluate them based on their progress. Research has shown that this form of mastery-based feedback actually leads to better learning outcomes, according to Black and William. Here's another visual. This visual displays that when using a different grading system compared to the traditional grading system, we see that kids tend to earn more of A, B-based grades based on a competency assessment compared to traditional grading systems that show that most kids tend to get C's. So by not using this grading system, we actually see better benefits. So how do we make this change happen? This shift wouldn't be sudden. We should start small, introducing narrative evaluations or portfolio assessments in a few subjects like English or art, where creative and subjective work is already common. Schools could offer training for teachers to help them assess student learning without relying so much on grades. One way to get this started would be to form a committee or explore grading alternatives. Students, faculty, and administrators could work together to develop a pilot program and analyze results just to see if this competency-based learning would be better. Change is possible. Schools around the world, including some in the United States already used alternative assessment methods. Finland, for instance, has shown that the traditional grades aren't necessary for academic success. In fact, Finland consistently ranks among the top in education globally, and it emphasizes collaboration, feedback, and personal growth rather than assigning a grade. This visual represents the percentage of high school graduates in Finland compared to America. Based on the visual, Finland shows significance in the amount of graduates compared to America. Its education system is often cited as one of the best globally because it emphasizes holistic development, equity, and student well-being rather than assessing a grade. In conclusion, the traditional grading system isn't just outdated, it's actively harmful. It reduces learning to numbers, creates stress, and truly limits growth. By moving away from this model, we can help focus on learning itself rather than achieving a specific grade. Imagine a future where our education system values growth over grades. A future where learning is about curiosity and understanding and not about competition and numbers. By taking steps towards alternative assessments, we can create an educational environment that truly benefits every student, starting at the K through 12 level and apply it to colleges. Thank you.